I want to start by saying I don't think this is gonna happen again. That doesn't sound nearly as comforting as you think it does. Continue. But if it were to happen again, how soon is Game 7? Game 6 Saturday, Game 7 Monday. And that's 96 hours away at the time we're shooting this. Less now that you're watching it.
Let's go!
Give me what I want!
Kick down the door!
Drew, you are not doing this!
Not nice!
There's a giant hand!
You hear yourself?
I made like 2,000 of these. I'd like to have fun. With you wherever you are, welcome to LFR. Well, there it is. There it is, it's over. We know the collapse is coming. Atlantic Division team, who was the better regular season team, had the home ice advantage over the other Atlantic Division team, has an opportunity to win on home ice. Send the other team home on home ice. Get rid of them, eliminate them, and close out the series on home ice, and they blow the opportunity. So now we head back to Florida for Game 6. But enough about the Bruins. Leafs lose 4-2 at the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning, forcing a Game 6 back in Tampa, where I'm going to remind everybody, and I'm going to say this until you know that it's true, because it is! The Leafs are undefeated in Tampa Bay in these playoffs. I understand this is a tough time for you, and I'm going to do my best to talk you through it. Because this isn't a tough time for me, I'm doing just fine involuntary twitch. I actually used to have it involuntary eye twitch. It used to kick in every spring. And it didn't this time. That's how I know the drugs are working. But first, it's playoffs! Did you know? Get in the game and make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Bet before the game or live in play on all your favorite hockey matchups. I'm not sure if they offered a 19-year-long 11-leg parlay that said the Leafs would lose 11 straight closeout games! Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN and download the Sports Interaction app, but only if you're 19 plus. That means you actually remember the Leafs winning a playoff series. Please play responsibly. All right. Here we go, here we are. You know, I shoot these alone. I shoot these alone in my room. My family upstairs with white noise machines to the hilt. There's almost no soundproofing in this room whatsoever. There's so much stuff on the walls that it actually absorbs the vast majority of it, even if I go like that. There are dozens of figures of people, but there are no people in this room except for me. And yet I feel your presence. I feel your presence. I know there's lots of groups of people here. There's lots of different people. First, there's probably the largest group. That's Leafs fans, and you're not all in the same group of Leafs fans, are you? Some of you are here because you want me to give you a reason to believe, a reason to tell you that Game 6 will be different, and if need be, Game 7 will be different. There's also the group of you who really wanted the Leafs to win Game 5, and the first group wanted the Leafs to win Game 5 as well, but you're mad about it, and you want me to channel your anger. You want the catharsis from telling me what a bunch of bums they are for losing that game. Then there's the strangest group, but one that actually has a soft spot in my heart, the non-Leaf fans who just kind of want to see what I have to say, but in a well-meaning way. They're like, gosh, I hope the Leafs pull it out for Steve, and thank you for that. I hope you get whatever you want for Christmas. But then, zoom in, Drew. I want them to see every pore on my face. Then, there's the ill-meaning jerks who tune in just to see me lose my mind. Leave that take. I screamed myself into a hiccup. You want to see me scream myself into a hiccup? There was no hiccup that time. I did better. There was a time where I was hiccuping more, and then I stopped having beer while shooting videos. But if it gets to 7, I don't want to rule it out. Listen, I'm not stupid. I can count. I can see the numbers. Game 1, when the Leafs got absolutely stomped, over 200,000 views like that. Leafs do the exact same thing, even worse the next game, and not even close. Got over 100K and it was still almost half the views. Game 3, overtime win, bigger than Game 2, still not even close to Game 1. Game 4, overtime win after erasing a 4-1 deficit. Again, bigger than Game 2 and bigger than Game 3, still not even close to Game 1. And here's what I want to ask. How many of you are back for the first time since Game 1? You're a jerk! I think I speak for the rest of us watching when I say you should be put on a watch list! What do you, get off on this? You enjoy the pain and humiliation of an awkwardly bearded, fully clothed man? Fully clothed as far as you know. I hope you can't see the reflection off of any of the stuff in the back. I'm wearing pants, or am I? Listen! The Leafs had a chance to win in Game 5. It was fun. They had a multi-goal deficit in the third period, in the final minutes, and they almost erased it again. When Matthews celebrated the way he did, Didn't you feel it? Didn't you feel it? I felt it! It didn't happen. And you know why? You can't do that to Tampa every time. You come back with a minute left in game 3. You can't do that every time. And then win it in overtime. You can't do that every time. You can't erase a 4-1 deficit in the third period and then win it in overtime. You can't do that every time. There's a reason they are fun and noteworthy. They don't happen that often. So the good news is the Leafs take a 3-2 series lead into game 6. The bad news is how many games out of the 5 played so far have the Leafs been the better team? My answer is 1. They've been the better team in none of the games Victor Hedman has played in. And he's their best defenseman, and he's still playing. So that feels like a problem. And you know what? The Leafs were 3-0 without Bunting in the lineup. When he got suspended, they were 3-0. And I was on team maybe don't play the guy. Then I sort of changed my mind when the Leafs were getting filled in game 4. But then they won game 4 and people were split. They had the composure to come back in those games and letting Bunting back in. It just doesn't feel like the right move, and maybe a little bit of internal accountability. So I cannot blame the Leafs organization for doing something that I agreed with them doing. But now that I've watched them lose game 5, it seems like nothing short of madness not playing Michael Bunting when you have home ice advantage. Matthew Nyes goes down with injury later in this game. He ended up coming back, but what if he didn't? Wouldn't it have been incredible to have Bunting on the 3rd, even 4th line, and then, you just pull him out! You just pull him out! Jack in the box! Surprise! And now you have a fascinating choice to make in game 6. Probably take out Sam Lafferty. He wasn't very good. First and foremost, this was Andrei Vasilevskiy's best game of the series, and we maybe should have saw it coming. Because all the stuff said about him struggling in this series and struggling to track pucks was absolutely true. And we saw it in this game. Morgan Rielly taking a shot that just beats him clean. He's been beaten clean a lot of times in this series. But it's that 2-day break that gets you. First day, there were all the Vasilevskiy memes and all the stuff going around, and Vasilevskiy himself even commented on it, saying that he was going to get x-ray glasses. And then today at some point it hit me. I'm like, we're talking a lot of smack about the best goalie in the world and maybe we should stop. Sure enough, best game of the series. There it is. And I thought the Leafs' best players had a fantastic game and they gave the Leafs every opportunity to win. The bottom half of the lineup failed miserably on home ice. Like, look at the first goal. John Tavares throws it in front. Nyes isn't able to get possession, but it actually works out because it comes to Rielly, snipes it on Vasilevskiy. Giant Selly, the building on its feet. They're actually going to do it tonight. And 26 seconds later, Anthony Cirelli ties it. On the stream, I tried to act like, that means it's going to be a big game. It's going to be, they never said it would be easy. And in my head, I'm like, no, I think they might lose. The Lightning are crashing down on the Leafs zone. Justin Hall goes for a hit, and it connects. And I just don't think he needed to do it. Now, the reason he did it is he felt he had support, and he did. The forwards were coming back. I still don't think he needed to do it. Like, what do you need at that exact moment? You just scored, right? You just scored less than 30 seconds ago. Do you need a big hit at the defensive blue line? That's definitely going to lead to a fight, let's be honest. Or just flick the puck away. Just have it get out of the general vicinity. I'm not saying that's how it would have ended up, but it probably would have ended up better had he not thrown the hit. But Kerfoot comes back, and he's in support. Until he's not. Like, he just abandons his post. Then Hagel's allowed to just have the front of the net, and Cirelli's in there with the second whack, and all of a sudden it's tied. That's a goal where adrenaline failed the Leafs. Like, they just weren't thinking. And that's how we head into intermission. The score is 1-1. You know what? The score is 1-1. It's a tie game. Things calm down after that initial pop. 40 minutes left in regulation. Let's see what's there. Then this is the goal that's just going to get talked about to death over the next 48 hours. Mikey Eysmont comes in with speed. He's back in the lineup for the first time since game 1. And he walks Justin Hall like a dog. A few people reached out to me about, like, potentially being mean to Justin Hall. It is not my intention to be mean to Justin Hall here. And I think what they're trying to do is to prevent the weirdos who should definitely be on a watch list, who are going on to, like, Jake Gardner's Instagram and leaving horrible comments in 2013 and 2018. And, oh my goodness, we put that guy through a lot. And, like, Gardner deserved criticism. He didn't play very well. Valid criticism. But don't go on to his Instagram. Don't go saying horrible things. Like, what's the matter with you? you? What if your coworkers saw that, or your friends, your parents? What's the matter with you? Even worse, what if they saw that? So now that we've gotten that out of the way, the unreasonable criticism, the unreasonable insults out of the way, this goal cannot happen. That goal is, I think, the worst one the Leafs have allowed in these playoffs. Now, Samsonov has to save that. Beginning, middle, end. Samsonov has to save that. That is a bad goal for him to allow. Bad goal. Like, he just went into Tampa, outplayed Vasilevskiy in 2 straight games in his own barn. He got outplayed in this one. Vasilevskiy stood on his head. Samsonov allowed a stinky goal, and that was the difference. But it was a stinky goal. Like, dude, every player, almost every single player out of the 750 or whatever in the National Hockey League, cut that in half. The 400 players or 300, whatever it is, the guys who end up on a Stanley Cup playoff roster, every one of them looks like Sidney Crosby if you give them time and space. What makes the best players in the NHL the best is their ability to find and hunt down and create time and space. But anyone can do what Mikey Eisman did on this goal if you simply hand it to them. Not everybody. Yes, everybody. Michael Pezzetta scored a shootout goal this year. Shut your face. I saw Tyler Mott score a goal between his legs last season. That dude has 43 goals in 331 career NHL games. That's 0.1299 goals per game. That's not picking on the guy. That's me trying to emphasize my point. Give any player on a National Hockey League roster, especially good enough to make a Stanley Cup playoff team, that much time and space, they can put it in your net. Yes, Sammy should have had it. I think there's room for more than one player to get blamed there. And it's funny that seems to follow Justin Holl around. And we need to get to more than halfway through the third period now to put a bow on this conversation. Giordano, slow to the puck on this one. And understandably, he might not have been at 100%. Don't worry, we'll talk about the hit. But still, if you're out there, you're out there. Puck squirts loose into the slot. Zach Aston-Reese, who had an awkward non-hit in the neutral zone just moments before, accidentally kicks the puck right to the Lightning. Nick Paul scores, and he doesn't need a rebound. His first goal in 30 games. Thanks, producer AJ from the streams. Before the stream, he goes to me, he goes, "Hey, did you know that Nick Paul hasn't scored in 30 games? And everyone in his room, every me, was like, why would you even say that? That's Paul's first goal since February 21st against Anaheim, which was his first goal since January 16th against Seattle, which means his last goal against a playoff opponent was January 16th against Seattle. Credit where credit's due, Tampa's third line was effective all night. Eismont, great addition there, and obviously Paul. And again, this one's not Hall's fault. It's not. Like, we talked about Giordano and Zach Aston-Reese with the little kick, and Samsonov again is just swimming in his net. The 2 of the goals he didn't look very good on. And just thank goodness there wasn't a rebound on this one, because there's Justin just having a good public skate. He's looking at the puck, and there's a dude right there, and thank goodness that dude didn't have the puck, because he would have scored 2. Now, you know the revelation that I had, and this is why I skipped to the third goal, the revelation that I had to do with Sheldon Keefe's quote after the game, which was born from people pointing out the obvious, which comes from Mike Stevens from the Hockey News. Hall pair, meaning Hall and Giordano, on the ice for their third goal against of the game. Hall has only played 12:33 tonight, by the way. Matt Larkin pointing out, now 14-2 Tampa in the series with Justin Hall on the ice. This is astounding. Yes, especially considering the Lightning have only scored 20 goals. But this is what did it and what set people off and what set me off. Sheldon Keefe on Justin Hall. I would ask if he's out there by himself when he gets scored on. The answer to that would be no. First of all, thank you for answering that. I had no idea. Second of all, does this not sound like the defense of every bad goalie the Leafs have had for the last half decade plus? Oh, it's not Hutchinson's fault because the defense in front of him and Campbell didn't show up in this moment, and I know Garrett Sparks, he's gonna do it. And in some moments, even Freddie Anderson, who bailed the Leafs out on a lot of occasions, but you go, look at that, and look at this, and look at this. He doesn't make the save. Yes, there's a defensive breakdown, but you need a save. And I seem to remember in the Amazon documentary, it was Sheldon Keefe and I think then goalie coach Was it Steve Briere? I think it was Steve Briere. We were looking over footage, and I think it was Briere who pointed out, yeah, well, look, we're getting deflections and this and that. And Sheldon Keefe's response was to tell him F off. And I saw that, and I was like, you're right. Because, yeah, like deflections and bad bounces and an unlucky game or two. But this was a consistent pattern. Those goals were always going in. Always, always, always. And any time the players made a mistake in front of the goalie, it was in the back of the net. And at some point, you just need a save. You need a save. For goodness sakes, you need a save. Why can't we apply that to Justin Holl? Why, Sheldon? Why can't we? None of this is Hall's fault, by the way. So for everyone freaking out about him, he's a man who can do what he can do. We've seen him been good. We've seen him been not so good. He's a man who does what he does. We know what he does. And he earned his spot in the starting lineup of this playoff series. And I think he has spent it. He definitely spent it in Game 5. I don't think putting Timothy Liljegren into Game 5 would have made much sense. I think they would have been repeating a mistake that they made in the Habs series with Dermott and Sandin. But now what do you do for Game 6 in Tampa? Because look, I know he's a fan favorite because of what he's done over his career and the shot block record and everything. Giordano's been awful. He's been almost as bad as Hall by the numbers. I think I saw a stat from Kevin Papetti. Hall's expected goals for was around 33%, and Giordano's was like 38. 38 is better. It still sucks. I don't know if this is the unpopular or uncommon opinion today, but this is on Sheldon. This is 1,000,000% on Sheldon. The Leafs have allowed 20 goals in 5 games to Tampa. Hall's been on the ice for 14 of them. That's madness. He was on the ice for 6 of the 7 in Game 1. Let's take Game 1 out of the equation. He's still been on the ice for 8 out of 13. Sheldon Keefe has not done a good enough job keeping these guys away from the worst types of situations. Tampa is very clearly targeting Hall and Giordano. 14 of 20 goals in this series for the Lightning have gone in while Hall's been on the ice. 8 of 13 since Game 1. That's the coach. That's the coach. And it's one thing when it happens on the road, but oof maroon when it happens at home. And with the 4th line on the ice too, Sheldon. I guess the reason I'm saying this isn't in like defense or even criticism of Justin Holl. It's, I don't think putting Timothy Liljegren into the lineup fixes that problem. That's not a personnel problem. That's a coach problem. Like, there are aspects of the game that Tampa's winning. There are aspects of the game the Leafs are winning. John Cooper is dummying that third pair. And there's nothing Sheldon can do about it. And we can talk about the missed opportunities. The Leafs had so many almost breakaways. Only one real breakaway. Mitch doesn't score. Dying minutes. Mitch hits the post. Power play to start the third period. Can't convert. And Matthews in front, where the Leafs seem to have way more opportunities than they had in most of the previous games. He gets one. And Riley trying his absolute heart out, protecting the open net. The puck hits the post. The miracle of the puck hitting the post. But Killorn buries an empty netter with under 5 seconds to go, and that ices it. And now we head back to Tampa for Game 6. Like, for all the criticisms I've said about the Leafs, it is for the Leafs in this one game. You go to Tampa for Game 6, you could clobber them. You could absolutely clobber them. Or they could clobber you. Or it's a tight game and one of you wins and one of you loses. I don't know what Saturday holds. All I know is it's a different game from Game 5 and from Game 4, 3, 2, and 1. You have to look at each game, and you have to look at every year individually. Listen, we all know if the Leafs win this series, we're all going to be saying the same thing. First one since 2004, erase the demons, whatever. That's for then. If the Leafs lose this series, we have to take history into account. We have to, and it's going to break a lot of brains. I don't even want to think about that right now. But in the moment, right here, prepping for Game 6, as a fan, as a coaching staff, or as a player, you have to ignore the past. It doesn't factor in. It's just not the same. The personnel, the circumstances, you're not the same. Yeah, Austin Matthews is still there, and John Tavares and William Nylander and Mitch Marner. It's a year later from the last one. Morgan Riley, he looks like a completely different person. He's playing great. Not that he hadn't played great in times past, but nothing like this. Three straight games with a goal, and he scored in Game 7. He was the only dude who scored a goal that they allowed to count in Game 7 last year. Even if the outcome is the same, it's different. I'm just hoping the outcome isn't the same. Now, I had to allot a little bit of time at the end for the penalties. I mean, they showed that they're not going to call it unless it's a borderline murder or a puck over the glass penalty. And dude, I can't help but point this out. Mitch puck over the glass, Game 6, 2021. Giordano puck over the glass, Game 7, 2022, last year. Kerfoot, another elimination game, puck over the glass. Dude, these elimination games, they do not hand out penalties. They do not hand out penalties. They do not hand out penalties. Stop. Stop. Kerfoot looked at his glove after. I wanted to jump through the screen. But I wanted to allot some time for the officiating because I have a few thoughts. I do not want to be the dude who just complains about officiating every time his team loses. And officiating was not the reason the Leafs lost, but I do think it prevented them from winning. They should have had a 2-minute 5-on-3. They easily should have, because there was a pending call and then there was a trip following the pending call that was more obvious than the pending call. But you can't call that in an elimination game. That's madness. The Mitch Marner trip? How do you not call that? Ryan O'Reilly has the puck in the offensive zone. He gets tripped by the stick of Victor Hedman. It's a penalty 11 times out of 10. And they don't call it. And the maroon penalty on Mark Giordano it would be hilarious if it wasn't so costly. First and foremost, I need you to explain the difference between the Kyle Clifford hit last year and this one like I'm 5. And even if there is a difference, is it such a big difference that one is 5 in a game plus 2 playoff games and the other is a 2-minute minor? While Maroon is screaming F you at the officials over and over again, by the way. And he had a point because that's checking from behind. It should have been 5 for checking from behind, and then you can review it. And then after that, if you want to make it 2, fine. I'm not going to be happy about that either. But at least you reviewed it, and also it's called the thing that it was. I think Maroon was upset because he got called for roughing. What? No! Simply no! That's a made-up call. That's not roughing. You could have called it fly fishing. You could have called it laser tag. You could have called it flip-de-lip-beep. It wasn't roughing. See how nuts I'm getting? And I need them to win. So I say all that to get to this point because I am so sick of this. Dave Jackson, NHL official, he did an interview with ESPN, Greg Wyshynski, and Scouting the Refs was also involved in the article. It's a great article. Highly recommend you give it a look. And shout out to Dave Jackson for participating in the thing. Because when it comes to officiating in the NHL, we're in the dark. They don't tell us anything. There's no post-game report, no nothing. And while I do appreciate his work with Greg Wyshynski on this article, there was a quote that drove me nuts, and I have to refute it. When an obvious call isn't called in overtime, Jackson says the referee is just as upset as you are. You're not going to intentionally miss an obvious penalty in overtime. It is so easy to call a penalty that should be called and know you'll be supported by the league for making the call, he said. Those calls are not ignored. They are missed. And no one feels any worse than the referee who misses them. I'm going to say this as respectfully as possible. Of course there are missed calls. And of course it's an impossible job to get right 100% of the time. No forward defenseman goalie is right or making the right play or doing their best at any given time. You might have a 99% great game and then there's a giveaway and your team loses the game and all of a sudden it's your fault and that's the focal point. Refs deal with that too, except they don't even get the glory of the goals or the saves. Stuff is absolutely going to get missed. But those calls are not ignored. They are missed. That's not true. I think it's true some of the time. It wasn't true in this game at all. They had front row seats to all of it. The 5-on-3 that wasn't, the trip on Marner, the trip on O'Reilly. You saw all of those. The Maroon Giordano one, I don't even know where your head's at. I don't even know what you're thinking. And I'm never going to know what you're thinking because you don't speak to anybody. You're not accountable to the public. You're accountable to the league. Who cares? That doesn't do any good for anybody. We might be more sympathetic with the job an official has if we knew what you were thinking at any given time. What we saw in this game wasn't a ref missing the calls and then going gosh and feeling bad about it. What we saw in this game is what we see in every game. You're not going to get a 5-on-3 in an elimination game. And if you do, it's got to be an axe murder. You're not going to see a call in the third period of a tight game. You might. There are times where it happens, but it's like you turn down the bar in a video game. And even if they did miss it, I can understand it once, I can understand it twice. The amount of times it happened in the latter half of this game was unforgivable. They just did a bad job. And that's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't wanna seem like I'm blaming it on the refs. I'm doing my best not to. Tampa won the game fair and square. Let's just say that. Tampa won the game fair and square. It just would have been neat if Leafs got some of the power play opportunities they 100% deserved. The O'Reilly one's unforgivable. I'm sorry. Did you see how I didn't bring up the Matthew Knies high stick? Because apparently it wasn't. Because I didn't have to. Those trips were brutal. Now here's why I would say you just got to drop those complaints. It's game 6 coming up. It's not getting better. And it's not going to get better in round 2. And it's really not going to get better in round 3. In the Stanley Cup final, you better flip and forget about it. It's the playoffs. This is how it's always been. I remember talking about Game 7 against Boston in 2013. I remember talking about this in the video about how the Bruins knew what they could get away with and the Leafs did not, and the Bruins had more playoff experience, which was true. They had won the Cup 2 years prior. The Leafs had not been to the playoffs at all since 2004. And now it's 2023. It's 10 years later. Completely different personnel. Morgan Rielly was the only Leaf drafted, I'm pretty sure. And we're still having the same conversation. Be undeniable. That's your only option. It's the only way to beat Tampa in their own building. Which is how they lost the last series that they played, by the way. Colorado beat them in their own building. In 6 questions. I'm so sorry, man. Your picture is Ozzy Osbourne holding a 666 Habs jersey. No, you're not. Who comes out for Bunting? And can we talk about Hall? Well, seeing as I did about a quarter of the video on Hall, that part's already done. But Bunting, getting into the lineup. I thought my buddy Nick LaFlame had the story perfect. Yarncroke, Matthews, Nylander, Knies, Tavares, Marner, although I'm not totally sure about that line. You might want to put Bunting there, but let's put Knies there for now. I think Bunting, O'Reilly, Achari, and then Aston Reese, Kampf, Kerfoot, you take Lafferty out. You could potentially put Kerfoot where Aston Reese is and take Aston Reese out. Lafferty hasn't had a great series. He didn't have a great game 5. Aston Reese has had a slightly better series, in my opinion. Didn't have a good game 5 either. Take out one of Aston Reese or Lafferty. You have to put Bunting in. Dude scored over 20 goals. You have to put Bunting in. You have to see. You cannot go into game 6 and 7 scratching a dude who spent most of the season on your first line. And I'll leave you with an infuriating quote from John Cooper, who's really good at those, from Chris Kren. Cooper, let's be honest. This game's so damn fun. You've got 2 teams going at it. There's so many storylines. There's stars here. Like, seriously, wouldn't you guys have been pissed off if this ended tonight? Let's all be back here for Game 7. I am going to fight you. I want the Leafs to win so bad, but I want to eliminate just his quotes. If eliminating the Lightning just means he doesn't talk anymore, that'll be enough. So, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell your friends, brand new podcast tomorrow on SDPN. See you Saturday. Game 6. I disagree with John. I don't want to be back for Game 7.